guys, howdy do. I wanted to let you know that my daughter Haley and I went on a UFO tour in Sedona, and I just wanted to share what we saw before I forget some of the things. So I know that some of you were interested in hearing back about this tour if we did indeed take it, and we did. So I just wanted to report back some of the neat things that we saw. So the tour was led by a woman. Her and her husband, he wasn't there, she was there. The two of them together run these tours, and they've been doing it for about 6 years. Her husband is a retired military person, and they are military contractors with their company. I don't know much about that, but they have access to military goggles, night vision goggles. So they are goggles that pick up light, not necessarily heat or anything like that, just light. So for looking up in the sky, what it enabled us to do was be able to see way more than we could with our naked eye or with binoculars or something like that. Before they started the tour, they educated us about the terrain, the different mountains that are around, and which was which. So we kind of got our bearings, and they told us what areas were maybe a little bit more active than others in terms of lights and things that we might see closer to the mountaintops or over the mountaintops. And there were definitely a couple places that were very active on or above the mountains. And when you looked up in the sky, it was super active. Then they also went ahead and explained the differences between what an airplane might look like. So they have like a flash, 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 flash. And then like with their lights, right? There were military crafts that we saw, and those also had a little bit of a rhythmic blinking light to it, although it was much harder to see. So a little bit harder there. Also got to see the difference between a satellite and those things too. And then they had the satellite schedule out, like rockets that might be launched or satellites that might be passing over. So there were no satellites flying over at that time. So we knew, that wasn't something that we had to try to determine what's what. So it was all very interesting. Once we got our goggles and we looked up directly, just looking up, I don't know how to explain it with words, but it was so many more stars and so much deeper. So it's almost like looking up at the sky with our eyes. You see darkness with, stars all around. And you don't see so much the depth of it and the dimension. It's kind of harder for us to tell what star's closer and what star's farther away, and which might be brighter than the others, because there's a lot of light pollution often. We were in a very, very dark place with these goggles, so it was really immense. It was vast. There were millions more stars than you can see with your eyes, and you could see the depth of it. They were able to point out in the sky with their goggles, you could see the Andromeda galaxy. There was a wormhole that she pointed out that was right in the middle of the Milky Way. And then actually with your naked eye, once they pointed it out, you could see that there's a spot in that sky that is a little bit darker. So it was just once you had the knowledge, then you could kind of look and actually see it. Super, super informative and educational. So some of the things that we saw it was a lot. Once your eyes adjusted, you could see the stars, and then you noticed there were they looked like stars going kind of in all different directions. There was a lot of activity. You could tell some were closer, some were farther away. It was really interesting to see. There was one kind of path that was almost like a highway. It was just kind of a very well-traveled path. You could always kind of look in that one spot and you just would see different lights moving around, and that is what they're saying are extraterrestrial ships. They're also telling us that the military crafts that are up there, the ones that we could see, that had the little bit of a blink, it's different than a plane, that they are up there. Their only reason for being out there is for viewing and recording, documenting. So the military crafts that were up there that we were seeing in, this evening, I guess that's very, very regular, and that is their job, is to just be up there documenting and recording, which I never knew that. It's very interesting. There were other places too, like Thunder Mountain. So Thunder Mountain had a lot of activity on it and above it. And they were explaining that Thunder Mountain in the Sedona area has the most iron content. It's very magnetic in a sense. It has the most elements there, where when there's thunder and lightning in the area, it's the mountain that gets hit with the lightning the most because of the content in the soil. So that's part of why it got the name Thunder Mountain, because the lightning hits there. And the EMF readings, the electromagnetic frequency readings coming from that area, coming from that mountain, are far greater than others. So there's a lot of energy happening there. And with that, then they see a lot of ships at night, lights at night, coming over it, above it, landing on it. We actually saw these lights that we couldn't see it with our naked eye, but with the binoculars, it was right there, and they were just boop, coming down, land on the mountain, and they just were right there on the ridge of the mountain, and then would either disappear or just sit there. It's not like anything I had witnessed before with my real eyes in this real world. So very, very interesting. And Thunder Mountain, and that area where all this activity is happening in and around that area, it's Hopi land. It's land that the military has no access to. The people, you can't go there. It's Hopi land. So the feeling is that the Hopi nation is still very much connected to space, as their petroglyphs and ancient recordings have actually shown, those space beings and things. So that's a thought that there's still a big connection there, and knowing that there's a ginormous amount of land and area out there that is really untouched, it leaves you to really kind of think and wonder about it. Another area that seemed to have a lot of activity was Bradshaw Ranch, which is connected to, or somehow connected to, Skinwalker Ranch. There's a show about that. I guess there's a show about Bradshaw Ranch too, which is, maybe that's how they're connected with Skinwalker. I don't know. I haven't watched it. But what we saw at this Bradshaw Ranch was way off in the distance, but it actually looked like, my daughter asked, she said, what are those lights over there? Because it looked like maybe a couple, maybe 2 to 4 houses way off in the distance that had their lights on. Maybe it was a city or something like that, little town. And there's no town there, it's a ranch, so those lights were unknown. They were not homes or a building or anything like that. And so Haley was watching it and said, what, she mentioned something else about like, what's happening over there? And so they everybody turned and looked, and it was just really cool, because one of those lights like amped up or ramped up. It went from like a star is what it kind of looked like sitting on the mountain, and it started glowing and growing in like a lavender color, but the center was still kind of golden, and it just got bigger and bigger, and then it's like poof, gone. And what they said is that was like a revving up and taking off kind of a thing, potentially. I'm not sure. It was something though. A lot of activity out there. And then this was the other spot that was kind of a hot spot, was the city of Jerome, or the town of Jerome. It's a mining town, old mining town, ghost town now they say, although there's people living there, but it's supposed to have a lot of paranormal activity. It's an old copper mine, so right there, that's a conductor. Copper is a huge conductor of energy, so that would make sense with paranormal activity happening. And then, of course, with things in the sky, I can only imagine copper's not going to hurt anything, right? It's just going to help amp up the energy, but that's my theory. But what we did see were a lot of lights flying above Jerome and then also landing on the mountains and then leaving or going up or just disappearing. I'm still processing what I saw, to be perfectly honest with you. I know that what I saw was real. I know somebody wasn't pulling the wool over our eyes or pulling a fast one on us or anything like that. It was very interesting. And the host at the end of the tour shared a couple of things with us. One was a Panite from Egypt that is supposed to, I guess there's only one cave that they've discovered in Egypt with Panite that looks like it's just covered with it inside, I guess. And it's said to be somewhat of a battery or a link or something to extraterrestrial. I believe she said it was located in Giza in an alignment with ley lines. I don't remember exactly what the explanation was, but I do remember the Panite. She had a lovely piece of it that was actually kind of in the shape of an alien's skull. It was kind of cool. So that's something I learned, that Panite is actually a good crystal to help connect with extraterrestrial. I have Panite in my store, but it's from Afghanistan. So, I don't know. We'll have to think about that one. And they also shared that there is a theory within science, military, and their team that the fact that the Earth is made up of over 70% quartz crystal, that is a battery, an energy source, and there's some kind of a link there with the activity that they're getting, the communication that they're getting with the extraterrestrial activity. And before I log off, I think the thing that hit me the most was looking up and watching a plane go by with other crafts following it. And I saw that more than once. And it makes me just think about, when we're up there flying, I don't think that we're alone. They talked about military pilots, airline pilots, commercial airline pilots. Over the last 2 years, the sightings have gone up, or the documentation and recordings of it have gone up 80%. So there's a lot more people talking about it, a lot more people coming forward, it sounds like. And the fact that, pilots have witnessed crafts flying next to them or around them, I don't know. That's something. So I don't know what all I saw, but I saw a lot. I won't ever look up at the stars again without thinking about that, because the depth was so immense. So that's my report on our UFO tour. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm still processing, so I'm sure I left a lot of things out, but just wanted to share before I forget. Thanks for listening. Mwah. Tons of love to you. Namaste.